Hey, it is day 5 of UX in 5, and I'm back at you today with a little bit of conversation about UX process. So, if you remember back to yesterday, I mentioned that there were sort of two aspects of UX. First is the knowledge base that is important to UX work. Second is the process, and I actually think this is the more important of the two. Um, all right, in some ways, I think it's the more important of the two. I don't know. Anyway, but it is an important aspect that we bring to the table, and every UX person is really committed to, and that is the method. So if you remember all the way back to day 1, I talked about regular and systematic inclusion of user feedback. Well, the process by which you do that is pretty regularized in UX. So what I'm going to do is I have another visual aid. Oh, yes, I do. So I'm going to share my screen here so you can see it with me, and hopefully this. So basically the process of UX has, and this is just really my sort of simplified process for how I explain it most of the time, or in the easiest way, but this is basically it. There are sort of 3 phases of a UX cycle, right? So this discover, design, and evaluate. So basically, user feedback is coming either directly or indirectly in each of these 3 cycles. So let's talk about the first one. In our first discover phase of a UX cycle, the question we're really asking is, who is the user and what are their goals or needs? Now, if you're doing this through indirect feedback, or it might be because you have some way of knowing about a user group that you don't have to go to them directly. So for example, there's a lot of research, say, on teachers or on business people or on, whoever. And you can actually tap some of the existing research to understand your user population. That would be an indirect way of getting user information. Now, if you were going for direct feedback from users, you would actually maybe go and interview them, either to understand what's the context that they'll be using your product in, or other aspects of their experience with related products or whatever. So you like this? There's all kinds of crazy going on while I record this. My husband's blasting music, my dog's going in and out, my phone is dinging. It's just a day in the life. That's all I can say. All right, but I digress. Phase 2, design. In the design phase, you can also have direct or indirect feedback. So indirect feedback usually comes in the form of the knowledge I was talking about. So all of that knowledge that people have going to design school, right, to learn about visual perception and color theory and all of the other amazing things that you learn when you are a designer. That's actually indirect, because all of that is based on what we know about how visual perception works. So our designers are kind of experts in visual perception. Same with me. My knowledge base goes into design, like when I'm doing a speech user interface, because I have all my background knowledge in cognitive psychology as well as speech and language. I can use that existing knowledge as a indirect form of user feedback to assist my design phase. Now, direct feedback during this phase usually takes the form of what we call formative usability testing. And that means we make an early version of our design. Sometimes that can just be static sketches. It can be, fully built out screens, or it can be something elaborate like a prototype. Those are all ways of creating material that can actually be used to get direct feedback from users to say, hey, let's walk through a task with this and see how it's working. All right, and then the last phase is evaluation phase. Does the design address the user needs you identified here in the first discover phase? So, good Lord, this one is gonna be rough, people. That's my timer, but I'll just finish off what I was saying in that in the evaluation phase, you do much of what I was talking about with user testing. This is where you mostly see usability testing with either a complete product. Sometimes you can consider this sort of your prototype testing as well. Happens in a lot of different ways. But the basic question you're trying to answer is, does this design actually meet user needs that we identified in Discover? So there you have it. The first week of our UX in 5 little sequence of trainings. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I know you've heard all the crazy that happens in my house because everybody's home. So I apologize for that. Thank you. Bye.